Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner, and it was a spectacular Provence Stage 1, Day 2 of racing in the south of France. Absolutely amazing stage. Whenever you get the Crosswinds, whenever the group is this small and the field is really filled with a lot of top talent and then some lesser talent at the back end, you know there's going to be some excitement because there's just not the depth in the field to hold it together like we would see in big races. Now remember, you go back last year to Paris-Roubaix in October, how spectacular it was, but look how all the attacks happening at the beginning of the race, even in the rain, the wet roads, the crosswinds, the group would still stay together until the nasty crashes, and then they would come back again because the depth of the field at a race like Paris-Roubaix is so thick, it can do that. Now we get here in the south of France, Provence. It's a good race for racing in Europe. When you win a race in Europe, it is a quality race. There's absolutely no doubt about it, but it's not Paris-Roubaix. But it does bring loads of excitement for fans to watch and keep an eye on the excitement of watching their big riders progress early in the season to get ready for the big objectives like Paris-Nice, Tirreno-Adriatico, and then shortly after that, all the classics. Now, what do we got to look forward to on today's stage 1? 160 kilometer flat stage, massive crosswinds. We're talking 50 to 60 kilometers an hour, over 30 miles per hour. The crosswinds that the riders are going to have to deal with in today's race. There's a break of 6 when the race turns on, and I'm sitting on the couch. I'm about 110 miles from the finish, and the group of 6 is up the road with about 4.5 minutes. But guys, they're not worth mentioning in today's Butterfly Effect edition because they had no effect on today's race. The crosswind was always going to be the golden child for the reason why everything explodes in today's race, and the break had nothing to do with it. Now the break's out there 4.5 minutes. Behind, it's Ineos that are guarding the front, keeping everything in check. Luke Rowe, the super domestique that he is, just absolutely shined throughout today's stage. I will give the break of 6 one nod and one reason why I loved watching them, and it was the only reason worth it. At 87 kilometers to go, there was a nasty right turn into the crosswind. We got to watch them go through that right turn, and that set the precedent because we knew the racing was going to be on 3-4 minutes later when the field comes through, and they did not disappoint. When the field of racers back there come through at the peloton, one whole mass group coming into that right turn, it got exciting from 85 kilometers all the way to the finish of the race. Ineos just racing like a well-oiled machine. When they come through the right turn, I want to point out Luke Rowe. Luke Rowe doesn't just go to the front and drive hard, right? He takes a look over his shoulder. He looks to find his man, his GC guy, Carapaz. He sees he's got Carapaz, and he takes off to the front. Now, let's not forget Filippo Ganna, because Filippo Ganna's doing the same thing. He's looking back. Do I got my sprinter, Elia Viviani, there? He's there, and the 4 guys group up in front and will stay together throughout the crosswind sections. Every time, I want to point this out, this is absolutely crucial about how dominant Ineos were on today's race. At 80 kilometers to go, they're together. 70 kilometers to go, all 4 of them are still together. 60 are together. 50 they're still together. 40 kilometers to go is the first time when you see Ineos actually separate as a group. And we're going to roll the film back too. Don't think I'm forgetting about what's happening back there at 85 kilometers. But I really want to point out as you're watching the race here in Provence just how well gelled the Ineos team were and how perfect they were in the crosswinds. Remember, when the group splits to about 30 guys at 85 kilometers to go, if Ineos stay together, there is nothing anybody can do to them. As a whole, they are absolutely the strongest team in the race. Quick Step were fabulous on today's race, had 3 guys in the group and at times even more, but I believe some of them got caught out in the gravel, lost some time, possibly got caught behind the crashes. Now let's bring the tape back to that 85 kilometer mark to go for the peloton when it first started blowing up. Because Ineos is up there, Quick Step is up there, All the big teams are represented with the exception Cofidis missed it. FDJ missed it. Movistar only had one rider in the front group. The whole rest of the team missed the front group. Ivan Sosa's chance of having a back-to-back double victory here in Provence is not going to happen because he'll lose massive time on today's stage. Now there's multiple reasons to understand why teams can miss this move. When we look at 85 kilometers, when they make that right turn and things just start blowing up, what's happening is the wind is blowing so hard the riders have to go from the right side of the road and they're echeloning all the way over to the left. And then everybody that's not in that first line in the peloton now is fighting for position. As behind that first line, as they're crunching over to the left side of the road, now what's happening is they're trying to go single file to get into the draft, and as they do, they're pushing riders. When they push riders, eventually a rider's going to go off the road in the gravel like we see, and then the crashes happen. When the crashes happen, it's absolutely unbelievably dangerous because as a rider like myself, I'm 5'10", I was 138 pounds racing in Europe. These guys like Filippo Ganna, they're at 175, 180, 6'2". I can't see over a rider of that size. So what's happening is when you're strung out left side of the road like this, and you're sitting back here and it's all strung out over here and strung down the line, you can't see what's happening. So when the riders push over and they push a rider out, he hits the gravel, the tires lose grip, boom, they crash, and then riders just start pile driving into one another, causing a massive crash back there. Now, up front, believe it or not, if you're up front in that front group and you've made that split, you can hear that crash happening. You can hear the riders yelling before they crash. You can hear the brakes squealing. You can hear the tires scratching. You can hear the carbon fiber breaking. And the only thing you're thinking is, do not ever look back in the crosswinds. There is so much crazy carnage going on at this moment at 85 kilometers to go, all the way for the next 10 kilometers, that if you turn around and change the direction of your eyesight to look back, most likely there's going to be a wheel that crosses over in front of your wheel, and then you're going to be the next crash victim. So when the riders are hearing all the yelling and screaming and the carnage back there, there's no way you can take your hands off the bars, and absolutely no way you can turn your head around to look and see if one of your teammates is back there in the carnage. Now, Ineos, one other thing I want to point out in this crucial 10 kilometers after that right turn, they are so well oiled that as the group is rotating, what happens, you end up having the rotating pace into the wind and this coming back. As they come back to the left side of the road, there has to be a gatekeeper. Now, Ineos, like I said, they have all four of their team together, and that's fantastic because if something was to happen directly in front of them, if one rider was to turn around and look back and there was a crash and the Ineos guys got split off from the front group, if the four stay together, they can always close that gap because they have the world time trial champion, Filippo Ganna, who can close just about anything single-handedly. I know I had one of those riders as my teammate, and his name was Fabian Cancellara, and when I won this red jersey at the Vuelta, Fabian Cancellara did stuff for me single-handedly in the Crosswind that I have never seen other riders capable of doing. But I'm sure if there is another rider, his name is Filippo Ganna. So when you stay next to Filippo Ganna, you know if you're wearing an Ineos jersey, he can get you back up to the front group. But now, as the gatekeeper, why do you need a gatekeeper? When the riders come back, there's a fight back there in the group to get back up to the front of the line so you can start going back up the pace line again. The front line is the fast pace line. The second line in the back is the one falling back and rotating back up. So the second line's losing speed, but there's still 10 guys, 15, 20 guys back here at times that don't want to be in the pace line because this particular break, if you want to call it that, split in the peloton, might not favor them. So they might not want to work and they might just want to sit back there. Now they're causing some chaos and they're not letting riders in. So what happens? Luke Rowe goes back there, and now he pushes the door open, and he holds the door open and allows his teammates to keep rotating through. When his third teammate passes by, he'll rotate right back up behind him. And then another Ineos rider, whoever's at the front through the pace line, when he comes to the back, he'll become the gatekeeper for his next three teammates, and so on throughout the race. Now the race stayed pretty calm, if you want to call it that, from about 40 kilometers to about 10 kilometers to go, and then the action finally started lighting up. Now, a lot of you guys sitting home watching the race, you wonder why there wasn't massive attacks against the Ineos guys when you're looking at 80 kilometers all the way to the finish line when this group first came together. There is just no way you're going to be able to get away from two teams. We're talking Quick Step. They have 3, if not 4 or 5 at times in this front group, and they're happy with the group because they have Julian Alaphilippe, and he's their GC hope. He is absolutely riding fabulous today, took multiple time bonuses throughout the stage, and now he is the highest on general classification when this stage finishes. But with that in mind, when you have a 2-time back-to-back road world champion on your team, you know you don't have to do any work. You just got to keep it together, bring everything to the line. Okay, Quick Step, if you get a chance to win the stage, they'll take it, but they're not going to risk losing Julian Alaphilippe on general classification. So that team is happy. Ineos is happy because they have the fastest sprinter in this group. They got rid of FDJ, Arnaud Demar back there, who is now gone. That was probably the biggest competition for the sprint stage on today's race against Viviani. Now he's gone. Ineos is looking at this group that's now reduced down to about 25, 23 riders, and they're happy to have it go all the way to the line. So they're always controlling the front of this group of elite 25 riders. Now it gets a little tricky though. I thought Ineos played it spectacular, and you know by my emotions and the words I have just used to describe their ride today's race that they were absolutely fabulous. But here's where things get a little tricky. Under 10 kilometers to go, they got Richard Carapaz, their GC hope, the sole rider riding the front. Mathieu Bernard, Total Energy, is the first rider to light this up with about 8 kilometers to go. Julian Alaphilippe, world champion, tries to close the gap, but he can't. And it's Ghana and Carapaz back there that close the gap up to the world champion, but they're still chasing Mathieu Bernard up there, who's putting on a fabulous show. Bernard, remember, is one of the right-hand men, none other than Peter Sagan. He has blown races apart single-handedly multiple times throughout his career, so you know he has great power. Now, here's where the mistake comes with Ineos. With around 7 kilometers to go, we see 2 of the Ineos riders, Viviani and Luke Rowe, and they sit up and open a small gap to Richard Carapaz and Ghana. I didn't like this move. I thought they needed to close the gap down to Bernard a little bit quicker, and they could have used Luke Rowe briefly between that 8 and 6 kilometers to go, and that should not affect his form when it comes to the lead out of Viviani. Instead, it makes for an exciting race because Luke Rowe opens up a gap because he wants to be a little bit further behind in the group so he can watch all the other attacks. But I think when you talk about how windy the conditions are at today's race, when you look at how strong and powerful they are with 4 guys together, I don't think it was the wisest move that I've seen from Luke Rowe to sit up, but he'll make up for that at the end of this race. Now, with about 2 kilometers to go, Filippo Ganna does a powerful acceleration to try to close the gap up to Bernard, which opens up a gap on Richard Carapaz, and he can't close the wheel. Things get really interesting here with just under 1.5 kilometers to go. Richard Carapaz realizes he's stuck between Bernard and, of course, the group of guys behind that have their amazing sprinter, Viviani, the Italian rider. He gets on the radio briefly. Looks like they must have gave him the A-OK to close the gap. He goes back to close the gap. And then behind, it's Israel Startup Nations, Mads Wirtz-Schmidt, that closes the gap up to Filippo Ganna and then continues the gap. They fly by Bernard as he can no longer hold off front. Now we're talking about 1.2 kilometers, 1.4 kilometers to go, and it's Madsworth Schmidt now flying up the road. Quick step jump on the front to close the gap. When they do, with about 900 meters to go, it's Pierre Latour that throws in the big attack to try to win the race solo and gain a little time on all the GC favorites. It's not to be, because Luke Rowe's going to make up for an earlier mistake. He is spot on the attack, follows it brilliantly with his sprinter Ele Viviani on his wheel. Passes with about 600 meters to go, drops Ele Viviani off with about 250 meters to go. Ele Viviani will look left over his shoulder, see he's got a clear lane, dive to the left for the left bend that's coming up, and win today's Stage 1 in Tour de la Provence. Behind, it's Sepp Van Mark across the line for second. Julian Alaphilippe gets third and some extra time bonuses. It was a fantastic day to race. It did not disappoint. The general classification, Filippo Ganna is still leading with the black jersey. Pierre Latour, Julian Alaphilippe, they are our highest on the GC favorites. Not far behind, though, Nairo Quintana, Archaic Samsic, did a fantastic job of putting all his crosswind skills to perfect effect on today's race to move himself up on the general classification. He's now sitting 12th on GC, one of the next big GC favorites to win the overall general classification here if he's got good climbing legs for Stage 4. The Stage 3, Day 4, I mean. Now behind, one thing interesting, Carapaz with 1.1 kilometers to go after riding from 10 kilometers all the way to the last K and a half. His legs blew and he lost some time on today's race. It's going to be interesting to see if Ineos can put it together and still fight for Richard Carapaz being their GC hope. Ethan Hayter, who had a fantastic time trial yesterday, finishing second to his teammate Ganna, lost out in today's crosswind stage and lost massive time, so he will not give Ineos a chance at the general classification fight. It's going to be all up for Richard Carapaz having fantastic form. I believe, though, what I've seen from Bessage, from Richard Carapaz, and what I watched here today, I don't think he's going to be the GC fight favorite here over Julian Alaphilippe, Nairo Quintana, and Pierre Latour. Going to be exciting. 2 more stages left here at Tour de la Provence. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. The action is just started and we got 2 more fantastic days to go. I'll see you guys real soon.